Descent into the Wormhole, where we discuss everything from ancient civilizations to modern day social issues and everything in between. I'm Les.
And I'm Stevie J, and today we're going to take a deep dive into the pyramids and who built them and why. So grab your coffee, set that cruise control, and let's get into it. Ooh, I'm excited about this one.
Me too.
We love the pyramids. We love the Egyptian history and everything like that, and how it all ties into the world and our world. And oh, so excited about this one. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. How are you?
Absolutely superb, I want to say.
I love it.
I always love having these conversations with you, but you know, this one's kind of special for both of us because we kind of started off talking about this, I feel.
Yes. Yeah, that's how we kind of went down the rabbit hole. That's it all started.
Or the wormhole in this case.
Yeah, the wormhole, if you will. Yeah, it's exactly how it all started. So this is something very near and dear to both of us, just a passion of what and why and like, what are they? Come on.
What, why, how, like, yeah, it's so true. It's like, and you know, there's so many different aspects to this discussion because there's what the mainstream will say, there's what people just in general think, and you know, like, how were they built? Why were they built? What the heck are they? Like, they're these big structures in the middle of a desert, talking about the Giza pyramids. But you know, there's also pyramids all around the world, and people may not know it, but they're interconnected as well. So
yes, they are. Yes, they are. It's very interesting when you really dig down into it. It just keeps getting deeper and deeper. You're like, how did they do this? Because they're aligned with the constellations, and they're aligned with the precession and the time that they were built in. And they have structures that mirror themselves in the sky. It is insane. The precision, the actual precision of the structures in itself, and how humans did not, like, there's no way. There's no way.
Well, I want to put it, I might just put a little caveat on that.
Okay.
Just a little caveat that humans as we know them and understand them.
Ding, ding.
Could not have done that.
No.
And there is proof of that in the fact that the pyramids, and we're talking about the Great Pyramids in Giza at the moment. So those pyramids are built and constructed within, I believe, it's less than 1 degree of true north.
Yeah.
And if people don't understand what that means, it is there's three things when you talk about north. There's true north, which is when I look up, essentially, if I'm at the bottom of the world and I look up, and that's where the top is. There's magnetic north, which is what a compass will show you what north is. And then there's also grid north. Well, at least in military terms, it's called grid north, but that's what a map looks like when you look up on a map and it goes up. And like a flat map. So there's 3 different things there. But to be able to build these massive structures with such precision, with these big blocks, and face them not only so close to true north, also with the Sphinx nearby, which also lines up geometrically and points towards the constellations. And what they want to tell us is they did it with 2 rocks. they did it by banging rocks together.
If someone can, then here's the thing. If they want to tell us that, then they would have to show us how it's done. Like, actually go out and build one exactly the way it's done with the tools that you said. If that's what you want me to believe, and that's what you want me to buy, you got to show me, because I'm not just going to take your word for it, because logically it doesn't make sense.
Right. No sense at all.
No. And even, you know, you brought up the Sphinx. The Sphinx's face, there's questions whether if that's her original face, because they originally thought it was actually the head of a lion, and the way she looks, she is actually looking, when it was built, directly into the constellation of Leo. So it was a mirror image of herself. So they think that it was originally a lion, and then whomever was was in power at that time decided that they wanted their face on the Sphinx. So they think it was like a reconditioned face. But if you
Yes.
look at it, still, if you look at it and you do the measurements of both sides, because nothing is ever equal. Nothing is ever equal, like faces, but
Right.
these ones
Yes.
are. How do
Mhm.
you, how do you take a rock and a chisel and do both, like circumferences are perfect.
Yeah.
Everything is, it is a mirror image of each other.
Mhm.
And you're telling me that no one can do that by hand
No, no, but
at
doing
such a
that by
large
eye,
scale.
right? And that's not too okay. So people are very skilled, right? So the
Yes.
statue of David, like other
Oh,
magnificent sculptures,
yes.
but they're not replicated in identity, are they? Like
Right.
identically,
Right.
they didn't make two statues of David,
No, it was
or
a one and done.
the artist did. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He was done and out of there, and so.
Yeah.
But with the pyramids, you see that replicated over and over and over
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
The precision that they made it with, and the measurements that they made this thing within,
Yeah.
and the two main big pyramids there, it is uncanny. And engineers and architects have said they could not replicate it
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
They could not do that. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So doesn't that tell you, like, doesn't that start the first question, like against that main narrative of, well, okay, it was a bunch of people, probably slaves, let's be honest, that dragged rocks from the Nile River that were
Mhm.
brought up from down south. They've dragged these ginormous, you know, 5,000 kilo blocks from there up to here, and they were able
Mhm.
to place them perfectly.
Right.
And place them so perfectly and in such a way that earthquakes and other natural disasters over thousands of years have not actually destroyed them.
Right.
They haven't crumbled. And even inside, in the chambers inside, where the blocks are so perfectly matched to each other,
Mhm.
one thing that I find so interesting about this is not all of the blocks are, let's say, a perfect square.
Right.
And to look at it, you may think, well, that's a random thing. That's a very random choice. And it must have been because they had all these uneven blocks and, so they just used what they had. But when you walk through or you go through some of these chambers, and it's true of other pyramids in the world and other ancient civilizational structures,
Mhm.
you walk through these passageways, and it's pointed out that the other side of the passageway mirrors the exact shapes, like a Tetris piece, like a
Mhm.
Tetris game,
Yeah.
mirrors with exact precision the other side. So on one side, you've got all these uneven, ununiformed shaped blocks. And on the opposite side, you have the exact same shapes in a mirror image of it. Now,
Yeah.
that's not random for a start.
Mhm.
And that's also not easy to achieve.
Right.
But architects and engineers say, well, there's a good reason to do that, which is because when you don't have those very square uniform blocks, it makes the structure stronger with all that interlinking.
Oh, the load bearing.
Yeah. So it can withstand things like natural disasters and
Yeah.
earthquakes and all that. Mhm.
Fascinating. Now, you've been there, like you've been to the pyramids in
Yes.
Giza, and you've been in them,
Yes.
and I'm so jealous.
Well, there's still time. There's still time, but yes.
What was it like when you went in there? What was the feeling you got?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting to describe this because I've always been so interested and had such a curiosity with the pyramids, and I've always wanted to be in them. But it was really interesting because when I went in, and you go down like this big long shaft, and you
Mhm.
don't get to go into all the chambers, but they let you in like the biggest chamber. And going down into this thing, it was amazing to feel what it's like to go in and see this passageway that had been bored essentially or built into this massive structure with such precision at such an angle and such a distance. Like that, for the first thing for me was like, wow, like how on earth did they do this?
Mhm.
And then once I got into the chamber though, it was really, really interesting. Like there's not a lot in there. There's not much in there at all.
Mhm.
But looking at all of the um, all of the geometry and just how perfect everything was aligned and matched, I actually had a strange feeling. And the
Mm,
feeling was, I shouldn't be in here.
yeah.
Like, this isn't a place that I should be. Um, of course, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there, my whole life up to that point.
Yeah.
But it felt kind of like, this isn't my place. This isn't a place I should be in.
Yeah.
Um, and I've wondered why that is over the journey. And it kind of brings us to the question, why were the pyramids built?
Exactly.
Like, they were built precisely, and they were built, with such technical genius, really. But
Hmm.
why? And so for me, like, that feeling that I had was like, well, it's like, this isn't my place to be in. This isn't somewhere I should be. This isn't something for me. This was something built for a real purpose and somebody else's purpose. And I don't know what that is.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, why were they built? To me, it felt like they must have had a purpose. They must have been a tool of some kind.
Yeah.
Like, they must have been for something, not just a tomb, not just a monument for the sake of a monument.
Right.
There's too much in there, and um, too much precision and care taken to make these
Yeah.
structures, or to just be a tomb, or just be something to look at and go, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And underneath the structure is actually, it gets even more mind-boggling, because they say there's a river like from the Nile, because
Mm.
they're saying now that the pyramids were built way before they even thought they were, because the weathering on the Sphinx is not wind, it's water. So they think that it was built
Mm.
on the River Nile, and the Nile has just receded. So the Nile still runs underneath. So
Hmm.
you've got the water running underneath, and the water is a conductor.
Right. Yes.
So was it a power plant? Was it a communication device? Was it an energy something? What was it that they needed the water for? Because
Yes.
you're not allowed in those areas. And there's something, I think it's the library or something they're saying is underneath the left paw of the Sphinx. And the government of Egypt will not allow anyone in there.
Right.
No one. And I think it's because if we find out what's in there, it'll be kind of cracking the code to the universe, and cracking the code to who we actually are and how we actually got here, that it would break everybody's brain. I think
Yes.
it would be so detrimental, because it would collapse everything that we know that is. So it's
Right.
actually like a protection thing. But there's a lot of us saying, well, let me know. Like, if it's going to break my brain, at least I want to break my brain with the truth.
Right. Yes. Break it with the truth.
Yeah.
And that's all we want. Like, we
Yeah.
just want to know what the truth is.
Yeah.
And do you think they're also worried that there's maybe, like you said, there's truth down there, and there's like the real answers.
Yeah.
But do you think there's some kind of switch to turn the pyramids on?
Yes. Yes.
They
There
don't
is a
want people
button
to know.
somewhere. Yeah.
Right. Well, and this is another question. Maybe there's a button and they don't know how to turn it on, because,
Yes.
and they don't want anyone else figuring it out first, because, well, then it's obviously more power. In some
Right.
sense, it's more power. And I feel like that's right. Like, we know how governments operate. They want
Yeah.
to keep everything under wraps, and they want to
Yeah.
keep us under wraps. But there's also that assumption that the people who built the pyramids were either a human race who were very primitive,
Hmm.
or um, they would be completely unable to build these structures at that time
Right.
in the way that it was explained, or that the way that
Yes.
the mainstream explains it. Now, that's a pretty big assumption to make, given that, I don't know, like, you weren't around then, I
Mhm.
wasn't around then. So nobody on this earth right now was around
Right.
when the pyramids were built. So nobody really knows. They only
I,
know what was passed down.
yes, but I will stop you there. Many of us may have been there. We just don't remember.
Right, exactly. Well,
We
and
just don't
that's true.
remember.
That's
Reincarnation,
true.
baby. Reincarnation. But
Yes.
you're absolutely right. We can't say that they were unintelligent. The, how can we say that when we are fascinated? Why are we so fascinated with a group of a bunch of people that were
Mhm.
cavemen, essentially, is how they would like us to believe it. Why are we so
Mhm.
fascinated? Because they were more advanced. They knew
Right.
things far beyond our knowledge base could ever take us at this moment, far
Right.
beyond. And that's why we're obsessed with it. There are so many people just obsessed with trying to figure out what on earth is going on. What are these things? Who built them? And
Yeah. And if it was such a simple thing, and if they were such a simple people,
we
and
should,
we're so smart, why haven't we figured it out?
exactly, makes us the dum
Well,
dums.
well, do you know what? And that's a great point, because in terms of what they say as to us today, like, oh yes, they were a simple, very, very simple-minded society. Well, that's easy to say, but in what sense are you calling somebody simple?
Right.
Because if you apply it to context today, and where we say, someone who is academically intelligent, that is someone who's smart.
Right.
But what we've done also in society throughout thousands of years, and since probably the time of the pyramids, is we've lost our way when it comes to a spiritual and energetic connection to the
Yes.
universe. Now,
Yes.
these people, the civilization who lived when the pyramids were built, had, and this is an assumption, but this is what I believe, had a much, much stronger and more intuitive connection
Yes.
energetically
Yeah.
to the universe, to the earth, to everything,
Yeah.
in that sense. And the rest of it was irrelevant. So like all the garbage we see is important today was irrelevant.
Yeah.
So that connection gave them access to, I'm going to say, turn on the pyramids that they built. They knew what they were building. They knew what for. They had that connection. So maybe that's the reason why they don't want people getting in and finding that switch, because if somebody in this day and age does have that energetic connection, or maybe can figure out how to link in with that higher vibration and that higher consciousness, then switch it on, then they would have the power, and
Right.
the
Can't have that.
governments would not. Exactly.
Can't have that. And I think that button is in us. I think we
Mhm.
are the button, because you know that saying, like, everything that you're looking for is within you already, like it's
Yes.
not outside of you. I think we are
Mhm.
the button. I think it could be like our third eye or something. Maybe our chakras need to be at a certain vibrate. I don't know, but I think we are the button, and that's why they want to constantly keep us energetically and spiritually held down,
Mhm.
and not allowing us to ascend, essentially to get to different ascensions, because we will figure it out, and then they're screwed. When we figure
Right.
out how powerful we are, they're screwed.
Yeah,
They
that's
have
it. All of
zero power over us.
exactly. All of
Yeah.
a sudden we have real freedom, and they
Yeah.
can't control us anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The other thing too is, from the governmental side, just talking about that, like the government are afraid, and fear drives so much of this stuff.
Yeah.
So through fear, they say, well, we're only going to let the people know this much. Like, we don't know what these things are and what they do. We've got an idea, but we don't want anybody else to actually know what they are, because
Right.
there's a fear of that loss of control. And so instead of just letting everyone know what the truth is, at least so far as they know,
Mhm.
like, let people in under the Sphinx, let people in under the pyramids, and you know try and let people who actually understand a little bit more about that spiritual side of things, about that energetic side of things, explore and have a look and
Yeah.
see. And the other thing too is that you talked about it earlier, the pyramids around the world and the monuments around the world all line up
Mhm.
on a very specific latitude around the
Yes.
earth.
Yeah.
They all line up in a very specific way in relation to space
Mhm.
and to the constellations and
Yep.
all of those things.
Yep.
And they're all interconnected, yet we're all built at different time periods,
Yep.
and and exclusively, so far as we know, they're all
Right.
built independent of each other.
Yeah.
But like you said, also, were they could they have been a communication tool
Yeah.
to either somewhere in the stars,
That's what I think.
uh, somewhere to another, to other countries, other lands, all of that kind of stuff.
Home base.
Eh, right. Do they need to? And because they're all linked together like that and on the
Mhm.
same latitude, do they all need to be turned on at the same time?
Probably.
So again, I agree with you so much that it is within us. And when we talk about the answers being within us, I believe that we are all everything. So
Mhm,
we're a part of a universe that is interconnected to everything.
mhm.
And even science is on board with that, because they break it down into the quantum realm now, and they find that it's little waveforms. Everything at its smallest unit of measurement is a waveform.
Mhm.
And that waveform doesn't it can go it's a waveform of probability, and so it can go either way. And therefore, if you expand that out to bigger and bigger things, i.e. us, we can influence that, and we can connect into that. So if everything operates in that way, then we're connected to the pyramids, we're connected to our past through a stream of consciousness, we're
Mhm.
connected to every single thing that happens. But what I feel has happened also is, through very purposeful means, we have been closed down and shut off to that connection.
Yes, absolutely. Slowly, I don't, when do you think that happened? Like, because obviously the ancient Egyptians, they had it figured out. They knew what they were doing,
Mhm.
and connecting the world in the way they did. They connected the world in such a way that like our cell phones never could. Like, you thought the
Right.
iPhone was fantastic. This is epic. Like,
Yeah.
it's incredible. And the like, I've been to Chichen Itza in Mexico. I've been
Right.
to the pyramids there. And the feeling you get when you're in it is just, I just wanted to touch all the rocks. That's what I wanted to
Right.
do. The bigger like the main period, the main one there, you can't really get close to it, but it's incredible. And just the way it was built, because on the side of that one where the stairs go up, and for our YouTube people, I'll put a picture of what I'm talking about. The stairs
Right.
going up on the side on the solstice, when the solstice comes twice a year, at a certain time, it when the sun hits a shadow, it's a shadow, but it's a snake. It's an actual picture of a snake
Huh.
going up the side of the stairs. And if you stand at the very bottom of the stairs and you clap, it sounds like birds are chirping. And I've got a video of that. I've got a video of like the entire
Wow.
group clapping, and you can hear the chirping as you go up. It's incredible. But the feeling you get behind it is, there's way more to it than
Yes.
than what they want to claim. And like they but all these different structures were built by different people. Like there's some in Peru, and all of these, like, everywhere. So it wasn't just the ancient Egyptians. Like, this knowledge was spread out far and wide
Hmm.
among a group of people who did not have iPhones.
Right. Exactly. Or emails or Instagram. They didn't have any of that stuff.
Was it a
And
100-month monkey syndrome thing where these 100 people figured it out, and like across the pond, they got the download? I think it was a mass plan. I think we were dropped here. People are gonna call me crazy. I do believe we are interstellar. I think that we were dropped here,
mhm.
and I think it was
Well,
I just and people got the download, or they got
well, I
visited by mom and dad came down to visit and say,
yeah,
listen, like, you need this in order to sustain life here, so this is
yeah,
what we're going to do.
yeah, absolutely. Well, people can call you crazy. They're going to have to call me crazy too, because I agree with you 100%. I think that's what happened, and I think that's where we came from. And if you look at what's his name, Eric von Daniken, I think his name is,
Yes.
and he talks a lot about Bible references and linking that to aliens. And
Yes.
let's just call it what it is. Yes, there are so many references. And if you think back to, let's call it biblical times, when people would see something, let's say a ship come from the stars,
Hmm.
or a being come from the stars with light around it, they would call it something angelic. They would call it something,
Yes.
they had to put a name on it
Yeah.
that made sense to them at the time.
Yeah.
And so, and they called it gods, and they called it this and that.
Yeah.
So when they saw these beings come down, they were beings. And I want to put this into the conversation as well, because I agree with you that we did come from that, and that's where the technology came from, and that's where the understanding of not just our Earth but space and how it relates to Earth
Mhm.
and the time cycles and everything like that. But whilst I'm a very, very positive person, I don't want to just assume that all of the beings that came from the stars were benevolent and good and
Right.
wanted to do us good, because the civilization in Egypt did come to an end. We can see
Yeah.
that now, and
Yeah.
these things did end. So I also believe that either an offshoot of those beings that came originally was not so well intentioned,
Uh-huh.
and or that another group of beings came from somewhere else and were not so well intentioned. Because and I want to make this, I'll draw this back to the biblical reference again, because when we hear the story of Adam and Eve, and we hear about the snake that was in the tree and it tempted Eve and all of these things. Well, let's get metaphorical with this. So someone, a benevolent being, let's call it an alien from a certain place,
Mhm.
came and said to the humans that were there, these are all the things that are great. We can give you this technology, all of that kind of stuff. We're going to be working together.
Mhm.
And then there was the snake as well, which I see represented as a different race, a different species, or a different group within that
Mhm.
that alien set of beings. And they were the ones who were creating this kind of evil and different and negative stream of thought. And so when and look, you can flip that around as well. You could say that in the Bible it was trying to reference God as the good beings, but
Mhm.
it's all in the eye of the beholder. So
Right.
was it the other way around, and the good being was actually the snake? The snake was actually trying to be helpful. But what I'm getting
Yeah.
at is, I agree 100% that we came from somewhere in the stars, and
Mhm.
with that we have to also, probability would say, there's not only good beings but also evil beings too.
Right.
And so where we see, well, what happened to the Egyptians? Well, perhaps something happened between those two races of beings from another world, from
Mhm.
another place, and the good beings decided to leave, and the other ones did too, or they stayed, and that's why we're in the state we're in now, of a very negative world.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel when I look at the ancient civilizations and stuff, I feel like it was a more grounded, connected group of people. And when you
Mhm,
said the snake, I just automatically thought like the snake on the side of the temple or on the side of the
mhm.
pyramid. There was a lot of killing going on at Chichen Itza, like a lot of killing.
Right. Yeah.
They would play soccer with and I think it was the winner got sacrificed or something. I forget. I'll have to go back and double check. I'm so sorry, I forget. But at the end of that game, someone died.
Right.
Like there was a lot of sacrifices going on. So that snake,
Mhm.
if we want to see it as a more negative thing, why would that snake be there? That's not a coincidence that on the solstice, a
Right.
very important
Yes.
time for certain believers of certain religious sects, like
Yeah.
they why the snake
Yep.
on the solstice?
Yeah. And that's just it. Like, for me, it's all too easy for people to just dismiss everything as like, oh well, they randomly built pyramids, and oh, they randomly did this, and oh, that's just random.
No.
It's not random when when you see how much it all links together.
Mhm.
There's nothing random about it. It's all so specific,
Yep.
and like you said with the solstice, like very, very time specific. So the
Yes.
astrological clock, it's like 26,000 years,
Yep.
and they could measure that.
Yep.
Like, just think about that for a second. Like, in our day and age, a lot of people, forget what time it is during a single day.
Yeah.
But they were not able to only map time over 5 years. 10
Yeah.
years, 100 years, 26,000 years and beyond, because 26,000 years is one cycle.
Right.
So, I mean, to have that scope of
Yeah.
knowledge and be able to even have that in your mind, or even have that in your thought process, is staggering, absolutely staggering.
Well, I think they live longer too. There are recordings of um rulers living for like actual ruling for 500 years. Like this guy ruled
Right.
for 500 years. So I
Yeah.
think because their lifespan was longer, because I think they did have more, they were more connected. And if you're more connected, then you don't I feel if you're pulled up, if you're connected up, then the gravity can't pull you down, and you don't
Mhm.
want to be pulled down, you want to be pulled up. And I feel that it has something to do with how we age and whatnot. And because we're
Right.
told we only live to be 80 or 90 years old, then we will actually die at 80 or 90 years old, because the placebo effect kicks in and we're told, well, that's just when you die. But if you
Right.
keep
Of
telling
course.
yourself you're on the 200-year cycle, like I'm on the 200-year life plan, because that's what you keep telling yourself, and you don't let anyone else tell you any differently, what could possibly happen? You could probably live, if you keep yourself healthy and whatnot,
Right.
you could probably do the 200-year cycle. But I think that's how they were able to do it, was because they live longer, and they probably
Right.
kept better notes. They probably did keep better notes, because let's be honest, and they were writing things on walls. And granted, do we believe it? Their walls are like our news.
Hmm.
Are we believing everything? Are we really, like, is something embellished over here a little bit? And was it the truth, or did this guy really win the war, or did he just did he want everyone to believe it after,
Right.
all
Well,
these people, that are gone, that are able to tell the real story? He's like, well, I wrote it
right.
on the wall, so it's got to be true. Right.
Exactly. Well, history is written by the victors of war, isn't it?
Yes. And is it
So,
true? We don't know.
is it true? Who knows?
We
Who
have no
knows?
idea. And that's why I
No
think it's
idea.
so shocking that they teach us this in school,
Yeah.
because we don't even know it's true.
Exactly. It's more, um, somebody had an idea and got the mass of people to agree to it.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
But really, nobody knows.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Like, a lot of people, like, they don't even teach the accurate things that we can see and know about the pyramids. The fact
Yeah.
that they're actually eight-sided. The ones in Egypt, the Great Pyramids, they are
Yeah.
eight-sided. So it's hard. Like, I'll try and explain it for the people listening. But so if you think of the flat side, the four flat sides, they're actually indented into the center, creating eight sides. So each flat section of four sides is not flat. It's got two different angles inside it. So that one, really, when I first learned that, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And architects are absolutely in awe of that, because they're like, how on earth did they do this?
Right.
There's
Again,
such a
how?
precision. And why?
Yeah.
Why did they do it? But again, they talked about it being a really strong way to build something that won't fall down. And also for it to be a conduit of energy, because pyramids are
Yes.
very much, not only do they line up geometrically very well for energetic things, but they
Mm.
also can have that vibration. And Nikola Tesla, it's so funny to me how all of this links into science, as well as,
Mm.
opinion and thought and all of those sorts
Mm.
of stuff, and spirituality. Because Nikola Tesla, one of the most famous scientists in the world ever, had his 369 theory, his theory of
Mm.
numbers, which he actually thought that the pyramids were a power source for something, or that
Mm.
they harnessed some kind of power.
Yeah.
And so, you can't just say, well, it's crazy conspiracy people. It's
Yeah.
Les and Stevie didn't take their drugs today. It's there is science that links all these things together. It's
Yes.
just that it doesn't go into the popular narrative. And with that too, how they lift the blocks, how they build these things so quickly, so
Yeah.
accurately, I believe it's part of that thing that Tesla was talking about, and an electromagnetic fields and
Yeah.
electromagnetism to be able to levitate ginormous blocks
Yeah.
into place.
Yeah. Well, there's a gal, she does remote viewing, and she did remote viewing into before the pyramids were built. And
Mhm.
we're just going by what she says. But she said that when she got there, it was giants, because giants did roam the earth at some point. They
Ah,
could still potentially, like they potentially
mhm.
in like within the core of the planet. Anyway, a
Right.
topic for another day. But she said it was
Yes.
the giants that they said, yes, we did, like we, like the people, the Egyptians gave us the plans. I think that's what she said, that they gave us the plans, and we created them, because
Mhm.
obviously we have the size and the strength to do these things.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
they also had the technology because they were interstellar. So they had all the technology that they brought with them to do all these things and then leave. Like they're not tombs. Like they didn't build this thing, because that would have taken, how long do you think that would have taken? Think how long it takes to build a high rise with the technology we have today.
Hmm. Well,
There's
it's
no way that they built that, within a guy's lifetime just because he wanted a fancy tomb.
well, I agree with you, and on the premise that it was built by human beings, or or by using manual labor to build them, like,
Right.
and the technology we understand today.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
No.
Like, and you look at there's churches around the world,
Yeah.
like Gothic churches, that took hundreds of years to build.
Yep.
There's other things around the world that are much smaller, much less complicated, yet took either decades, like more than 20 years, 50
Yeah.
years, 70 years, and sometimes hundreds of years to complete.
Yeah.
And so to say that this was done in 20 years, with two rocks banging together,
Yeah.
and with some very they must have been strong, but human slaves, this is ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
And von Daniken also did talk about that, the giants too,
Yeah.
because he talked about the beings coming down, and there were certain beings who wanted to do testing, like DNA testing. They wanted to see what would happen if they mixed DNA with humans. And
Right.
some of the result of that was giants, was humans that were half
Yes.
alien, half human, and they
Yeah.
were big people. They were giants.
Yeah.
And so, then there was some kind of agreement or disagreement between um, the beings in this other group of aliens who wanted to do the testing and wanted to commingle the DNA, because it was seen as not the right thing to do by the overall society of these
Mm.
aliens. But it happened anyway.
Right.
And that might lead into a reason why they're no longer here, or we don't see them anyway, because it's like, well, through this dilution of DNA and the combination of human and this alien DNA, which obviously had other thoughts in mind for humans.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe that's why we don't see them, why they left, or why they're not apparent to us today, because they got fed up with where the planet was heading
Yeah.
after. And we're talking, this time spans that we're talking about right now could be thousands, tens of thousands of years that this
Yeah.
is all occurring over.
Yeah.
Nothing says it's within a decade. Nothing says
No.
it's within 100 years.
No.
So it could be happening over tens of thousands of years, all of this stuff. But at
Yeah.
some point, maybe they just said, well, enough's enough. And the world's now populated with these beings that are
Eh,
not worthy of us anymore, or
Yeah.
not worthy of us being here.
Yeah. We
So,
screwed up.
right,
We
let's
gone
go to
effed
another
up.
planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we done screwed up. Let's move over to another planet
Yeah.
and give it another crack there,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's just incredible how people can just easily just say, yeah, slave. And I just love how they say slaves did it. Why couldn't a king have done it? Why couldn't Cleopatra herself have done it?
Mhm.
Why does it have to be slaves? Why is it always the slaves that are doing these things for us? Like, we need to get
Yeah.
out of this mindset of slaves.
Well, some people in Egypt, like when I was there, the Egyptologist that we had on our tour of the pyramids actually
Mhm.
said to us that while some were slaves, and of course, look, I agree, like we don't know this stuff.
Right.
But what he said was that they found a tomb, which they believe nearby to the
Mm.
pyramids, which was a combined tomb of hundreds of people. And they assumed, from the way that it was set out and the hieroglyphics that were in there and everything like that, that it was actually an honor for those people to have helped build the pyramids. Like that was a way to honor those people who helped build the pyramids, was to give them that tomb and that burial and everything like that. But that still doesn't fit in with the narrative. And it may be true. That may be true that that's what that was. But that still doesn't fit in with the narrative that the pyramids were built by human beings without any advanced technology in 20 years, because that tomb would have been hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Like big, because to achieve what they achieved, or so-called achieve, like even with more people, because you only can get a certain amount of people around one boulder at a time. You can only get a certain amount of people to do a task at a time before you physically run out of space. So mathematically, it's impossible. Intelligently, it's impossible. And physically, it's impossible. So like they tried to recreate this on a small scale. They tried to get people to manually build a pyramid on a smaller scale. And they couldn't do it. Like this is with smaller blocks, but they couldn't do it with the methods that were, that are talked about in the mainstream. They just couldn't do it. It wasn't achievable. And this is on like a 1/10th scale of what the actual pyramids are.
Yeah.
So,
and even with all of the there's different corridors, like, so you have the size, and then you have these chutes that go seemingly nowhere, and they're perfect. Why would they? And they figured out that they go out to certain constellations, like they're hitting at a certain time, certain stars, certain processions.
Yep.
What humans can't necessarily, well, the humans we know of today, because we have, I don't like to say we've evolved, we've just changed, because I don't think we've evolved at all. If anything,
we might be going down the other way.
We're sliding down the hill a little bit, I feel.
Somebody's up there pushing a giant flush button on our on our society.
But and maybe that's it. Maybe we are slipping down the other side of the hill, and that's why we can't figure it out.
Well, I want to bring in another thing into this quickly, and then I want to ask you about what you've read about the pyramids and what they're for and everything, because I've been watching this very interesting documentary, and I know you've been watching some of it too, but it's on time and the construct of time, what it is and everything like that, and the numbers behind it. Anyway, it's based on an Indian system, the Yuga system, and it's a very large time cycle. And funnily enough, it's around about 26,000 years.
Funny that number keeps coming up.
It is. But what they say in that, and the way they explain it and everything, is that they break it down that at the moment we're in what's called the Kali Yuga, which is the final cycle before destruction and rebirth. So what you just said then about sliding down that other side of, let's just call it greatness, or being at the height of civilization, I feel like that sounds right. Like we could be in that end of the cycle, that Kali Yuga that they're talking about, and that is the end of society as we know it, civilization as we know it, and after that comes rebirth. And so that would make sense, and that would align with that.
Yes. And I just want to say, like, it might not necessarily be like, I don't want people to panic and say, oh my God, we're all going to die. It could be a spiritual birth, because that's what December 12th, 2012 was. It was a spiritual birth. It wasn't, it was an ascension, and it was eyes open, and people are starting to be awake. And that's why the Mayan calendar, because we couldn't read it properly, we thought that the earth was actually going to implode. And really, it was just a spiritual implosion.
Right.
So it could be like, maybe the veil is lifted at the end of this cycle that we're going through. The veil is lifted, everyone can see. And it could be the death of society as we know it, the way we live it now.
Right.
Like under all this control and under all this, we can't breathe without getting in trouble at some point. With anybody really, whether it be the government or the guy down the street, someone's going to be pissed off at you for breathing at some point in the day. They're going to be offended. So maybe that could be it, that all goes away, and we figure out how to live in a more harmonious way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I hope that's what it is.
I hope
And
so too.
it's definitely a positive way to look at it. And
Yeah.
the other interesting thing about that whole time cycle is that if we look back at the the pyramids being built,
Mhm.
we look at say 3000 BC and times like that, um, with this yuga system, and what it bases a yuga on being 5048 years.
Mhm.
And so if we look at where we are now at plus 2000 from, we say AD,
Mhm.
2000, um, and you go back, I don't know, 5000 years, what does that
Mhm.
take us to? About 3000 BC.
Mhm.
And so it would make
Hmm.
sense that we're coming to the end
Yeah.
of that Yuga cycle now because, well, it's been 5,000 roughly, or close to.
Yeah.
Soon it will be
Hmm.
5,048 years. So that will come to an end, that cycle. And so they would have been living. This is the cycle of, according to this Indian system, what we're in right now, since 3000 BC,
Mhm.
is the cycle that declines and goes
Yeah.
into destruction or reformation or whatever it is before rebirth.
Yeah.
So they could have absolutely been in that cycle before, which is the cycle of, I can't remember the exact word, but it's basically meaning prosperity. Like that's where
Yeah.
everything is good in that cycle before,
Yep.
that 5,000 year cycle before. So all of these fantastic things and technology and all of these monuments, everything was built in that
Yes.
cycle. And
Yes.
everybody lived prosperous. It was a completely advanced society,
Yeah.
but it was time to go into the next time phase, the next phase of
That makes
this
perfect
Yuga
sense.
cycle. And what one of the theories in that was that the Egyptians, and we'll talk about it. I'll talk about it from a human sense. The human Egyptians at the time, because I want to probably stick with the fact that there was other beings there too.
Mhm.
But during that cycle, coming towards the end of it, they were able to recognize, because they mapped time out so accurately. They
Yes.
knew when that cycle would end for them,
Yeah.
and it would go into the next cycle. So what could they leave behind? As much as they could leave behind that would stand the weathering and the test of time, to give the next evolution of humans a clue as to what this is all about.
Hmm.
And so they etched it in stone and they built it in hieroglyphics and in communications to let people know that this is coming, this is what it's about, this is how you can achieve that ascension you talked about. Like
Yeah.
there's so many different scripts and scrolls and hieroglyphics
Yeah.
that talk about transitioning. And Egyptians, of course, the afterlife was so important.
Oh, yeah. They
Moving
live for the
spirit.
afterlife.
That's right. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't a negative thing. It was a
Oh,
positive
no.
thing
Yeah.
to rejoin that higher consciousness
Yeah.
and become a part of it. So yeah, anyway, I feel like I talked for ages then, but that was just one
Fascinating.
theory about those time cycles and how it could interlink. Mm.
And that actually makes sense because when I go over, I'll read what's in the book, but that
Mhm.
balancing, maybe that balancing
Ah,
is it won't let us completely blow ourselves up because we have the balancing of everything going on. Like it's going to be,
mhm.
it's going to suck. And let's be honest, look around.
Yeah,
But that balancing is not letting us implode.
right.
Like that actually does that makes sense in my head from what I've read and what you just said and what I've watched within that docuseries.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll leave everyone on this note of what this book says. Now, this is just a snippet of what was said. Now, this is from the Law of One. So it's the raw material. And essentially, Ra is a being that has lots of answers. So there, it's like a question and answer book of asking Ra just random questions about things. So they asked, so the question was, how many pyramids were built? Ra said there are 6 balancing pyramids and 52 others built for additional healing and initiatory work among your mind, body, and spiritual mind, body, and spiritual social complexes. So the pyramids were built as a balancing of our mind, body, and spirit. And that's why a lot, like, pyramids are healing. They're very, very healing. You'll have sound baths with, and you'll lay under a pyramid. Pyramids can open up a lot of doors spiritually.
Yeah.
I've got pyramids pretty much all over the place.
And you see it reflected, and I you know, some people would look at it as a chicken and egg thing,
Yeah.
but to me, religion came from this more ancient symbology. So the Trinity in Christianity and all of that, those things came from the more ancient teachings, not the other way around. So,
right. Yes. Yeah.
But you do see that 3 in everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 369 Tesla. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the question was, Tara, what is a balancing pyramid? Excellent question. So imagine, if you will, the many force fields of the earth in their geometrically precise web. Energy stream into the earth planes, as you would call them, from magnetically determined points. Due to growing thought form distortions in understanding of the law of one, the planet itself would seem to have potential for imbalance. The balancing pyramid structures were charged with crystals which drew the appropriate balance from the energy forces streaming into the various geometrical centers of electromagnetic energy which surrounded and shaped the planetary sphere. Now, if you go to the different pyramids, and I forget which one it is, it's either Göbekli Tepe or it's Baalbek, they found massive slabs of quartz. And quartz is the most powerful for vibration. And if we were to build a time machine, I would demand quartz. Like, if we're building our time traveling schmeg, like, I would demand a quartz be in there, because quartz is where it's at.
Well, I was going to suggest Mr. Fusion, but obviously, quartz makes
Mr.
more
Fusion
sense.
has nothing on the quartz. Are you kidding me? Doc Brown, dude, nothing. I'm kidding. Doc Brown, genius. So they found that there was, and it's not like it was just a random piece of slab. Like, it was part of the structure.
Right.
And it was part of it. And that's why when you pick up a crystal, you can feel the vibration. If you just sit there and you clear your mind for a second, you can actually feel the vibration. You can feel the vibration of almost anything, but crystals have a higher vibration that are easier to feel than your pen or your book or your computer or whatever.
Right.
And so the fact that it was a balancing system, because our thought process can off balance. And that's because the pendulums start to get involved, and the negativity really does take over.
Yes.
So it was a balancing to keep everyone kind of from going over the edge of negativity. I feel.
Wow. That makes so much sense. But I feel like it's all tying together, because like bringing that balance. And I talked about those time cycles.
Yeah.
If they were building these things and writing those hieroglyphics as records, building the pyramids as a way of letting us know as well, like, so it was the balance, but they were shifting through those time periods, knowing what was coming, and knowing that imbalance was coming, because it was coming into the age of the Kali Yuga, the age of destruction, and then rebirth. So how do they balance the universe like that? That's what they did. They built the pyramids for balance. And of course, everything else that we've talked about them being a tool for something, having being energetically charged, or having a power source, and of course, and the crystals just support that. It ties together. And I tell you, if somebody tries to tell me there's a coincidence in all of this stuff,
no,
I'm sorry, no,
there are no coincidences. No such thing. No such thing.
No such thing at all. And it's funny that you mentioned that about the quartz, because I've had that. Like, I've got a nice quartz crystal, and when I hold that, I can feel that vibrate. It's really, really cool. Really, really cool. So you put it onto a big scale, and it's like,
imagine the feeling of that.
Holding a battery, or holding a ginormous transformer that powers a whole city. Really interesting.
Actually, I've done a few meditations where you're instructed in your meditation to picture yourself lying on like a big, huge piece of pink quartz, rose quartz. And you doing it in your meditation, you can feel it. Like
Wow.
just the intention behind it is powerful enough. So imagine what would happen if we were able to tap inside and turn those things on. I think
So cool.
beautiful, amazing things would happen, but I
I
think that's
agree.
not what the upper echelons want.
Oh no, the
I
upper
think it would
echelons.
piss off a lot of people.
Oh, to give them the shits big time, and they wouldn't. They want to keep us all down. They don't want our
Yeah.
vibrations rising up. They don't want
Yeah.
us to become aware of this higher knowledge, not at all. And that's why
Right.
they're trying to keep us down and keep us in the dark, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. When really we're aiming for the light. That's all we're aiming
that's it.
for. And they won't let us. Well,
That's
they're trying
it.
not to let us.
Well, we're trying to get there. So
Yeah.
we're doing our best. We're doing our part to
Yeah.
shed some light on all of this stuff. But
Ooh, nice one.
so amazing, so amazing. And look, I don't know about you, but I could probably talk about this for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years straight,
Yes.
because it's such an interesting
So
topic.
fascinating.
And while we don't, we don't suggest that we know 100%. In fact, we openly say we don't know.
Yeah, we don't
But
know.
that's the entire point. Let's have this discussion. Let's ask
Yeah.
questions. Let's find out some more about it
Yeah.
and theorize what it could be. Theorize
Yeah.
what it could be all about.
Yeah. I'd love to know what other people think. And I want like the most off the wall
Yeah.
opinion, because usually the one that's the most off the wall is the one that makes the most sense. So
Right.
big,
Yeah.
small, little, I don't care what it is. I want to know what you think, because clearly there's a code to be cracked within it, and how fun it is to try and figure it out.
It is. It's so much fun. And I can't wait to see and hear what people say and
Yeah.
what people's questions are or theories. Yeah. Send through theories, like
Yeah.
whatever platform it's on or that you're listening to, go to the links, send us a question, send us a comment, send us something to say what you think about all of this, because it's just so interesting. And we're open. Like, we've given our thoughts and ideas, but hey, if you've got the most crazy idea to us, not crazy, not crazy
not
at
crazy.
all.
No.
We will accept anything. So really, really curious about that for sure.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Such a great conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. I always enjoy these chats, and it's nice to be sharing it with the wider universe, and hopefully people got something out of it. But yeah, great conversation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I hope they did too. So thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for stopping by and listening or watching, depending on where you are in the platform universe. Just go have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone. Catch you next
Take
time.
care. Bye.